Okay, we're COMP1011, and this is week 6, lesson 6, part 3. But we're looking at some stuff we did in week 4. We did this, some GUI stuff. We're going to go back to that again. And if you notice, we did a couple of things here. One of them was this program. We did everything in our program, right? And we also did my custom window, which is, we made a custom window that extends JFrame and so on. That I kind of put together really quickly, right? I'm going to kill this my custom window thing and just do that again, right? So in Eclipse, if you look on the top left corner, there is the ability to add swing components, right? So we can add a JFrame, right? We can add a JPanel, a JDialog, JApplet, and so on. An application window, and whatever, right? Swing automatic data binding, right? These are all the things that we see here, right? And so far up until this point, we did a JPanel, but the JPanel we programmed right here. We didn't create a new, our own custom JPanel, right? What we did was we used the built-in JPanel and we just ordered up a bunch of stuff with the window. Now we want to use object-oriented programming to make this happen. And in the book, actually, it shows us how to use a JPanel in an object-oriented kind of way, right? So if I go back to the PowerPoints, if you notice back on slide 20 or something like that, when we started doing the panel, let me take a look here. Here's what we did here. We created a new frame called label frame, right? Which we extended the JFrame. And extends means, of course, it's inheriting from the JFrame superclass, right? And of course, label frame would be our constructor. And what we're doing is we're sending into the superclass this title bar, testing JLabel, and there's many superclass, the constructor's overloaded. We can set different things in there. So this, methodology here, when we do this, right? And when I want to launch my window in my program file, what I got to do is, sorry, I'm going to go to my program file. I want to instantiate my JFrame, right? My new custom one. So here, let me go back for a second, so I don't miss this. That's what it's going to look like. Here's our window. Here's our main program where I instantiate my custom label frame, which is of type JFrame, right? Okay. Now, last time we also explored the flow layout, and flow layout. We have our guest. I'm going to ask him because he's an expert on swing. So, Louis, tell us. You're the expert on swing. Tell us if I want to create an absolute layout. I want to position things absolutely instead of using my flow layout. How do I do it? Come on, Louis. You did it with thing, right? What do I do, right? So here, I'm going to go back. He's going to help us because see, this is what happens when you sit in our class. That's it. You're going to be part of our class. We're gonna. That's it. We're going to help out. Right? So this is what we do. First of all, let's attempt, before you answer the question, let's attempt to add in our own custom class. The way we're going to do it is we're going to use this little panel over here. You have this panel next to you as well for Eclipse? Most of you should. We're going to go to Swing, and we're going to go to JFrame. Okay, if I go to JFrame, it says, okay, we need to make a name for my subclass, right? So I'm going to call this, again, it's like a window. So I'm going to call this my window, okay? For now, just as a test, right? Now, if you notice the source folder, right, as an example, it tells us, hey, where am I going to put this thing, right? Because I got to choose somewhere to put it. Well, it's telling me this because I didn't really just click on anything. It doesn't know which application I'm working on, which project. I really have to click something before I go up here and do that. So if I go this and go JFrame, now it knows that I'm in this COMP1011 lesson 04 source folder. You can also browse to it. If I wanted to choose one of the projects that's up here, I could do that manually. But the right thing to do is to choose your source folder first and then create my default. So I'm going to go My Window, and I'm going to click Finish. Now when I do that, it creates this mywindow.java file, right, which does a border layout as a default. And here I am extending JFrame. I have a private JPanel, which is a content pane that's included in my here in my class, right? I also have some other stuff. I have a public static void main. Do I need that? I already have this, right? Because remember, in my window, which is right here, I don't need all this because this piece here is included in my regular window, right? So I created a new private JPanel content pane as an example. That's what it's called, right? It's a content pane is where I'm going to have all my content, right? But I don't need this because this application here, right here, I'm not going to launch it and build it right out of my within my own project. I'm going to make it so that my program launches it, right? So I don't need this stuff. I get rid of it. Okay, I do need this. My window is the constructor, right, which creates my frame. So I need all this stuff here so I can get rid of it. And if you notice, it already sets up custom exit on close, right? It sets the bounds, so it tells me how big my window is going to be by default. And also it includes this new JPanel, right, with a border, right, around the border, an empty border. So it designs it a little bit. And I set my layout to border layout. And border layout, if you notice, it says constructs a border layout with specified gaps between components. The horizontal gap is specified by the H gap, and the vertical gap is specified by the V gap. And so that gives you some padding, if you will, between components. That's what it does. So this is my content pane. My content pane is almost like, remember we did this thing earlier today in where we have a container class, and the container class is going to house all my objects, right? Not the actual JPanel itself. The JPanel is like your outer window, your screen, and the JFrame is like your outer window, your screen, and the JPanel is almost like a container within the screen. That's what it does. So if I was to run this thing, if I was to instantiate my window just the way it is without putting anything else inside of it, right? Here's set content pane. Would it run? Do I need to set this thing so that's set visible to true? Do I need to do that? Or would it be automatic visible? Let's go back. Let's see what I'm talking about. So here's my program from last time, and I did all this stuff, this work here, right? I did I did a JFrame called my window already, right? I'm just going to, instead of killing it, I'm going to comment it all out, right? So I'm just going to go up here because I want you to see this thing. I'm going to put it in stasis. Go all the way to the bottom. I'm going to leave that try catch block in play, in stasis already, right? And then kind of do this. So this is all out. Okay? We're going to keep it there because this stuff, the stuff we've been working on right now. And I have my text field handler. Here's my text field handler. That's our first event handler that we haven't really defined what it does yet. Okay? Well, let's go over here, and inside of this first piece, I want to define my window, right? I want to say, and my window is a new JFrame. That's the one it's going to be called. I called it, my class is called my window, right? Now it says add default serial version ID, add generated serial version ID. I can add a suppress warning serial to my window, right? But you know what? I don't like my window. I'm going to save it. But I don't like it because it should be a capital because it's my own class, right? So I'm going to kind of right click, and I'm going to go to Refactor Rename, and I'm going to change from my window with a lowercase to my window with an uppercase. Okay, I'm going to click Finish. It's going to update my reference. When I come back, my window is going to have an uppercase character. Okay, cool. Now in my program, I'm going to instantiate my window object. So I'm going to say my window, right? And my window is going to have my lowercase window is equal to new my window, capital. This is very confusing, but if you notice, this is totally legal to do. Okay, if I do just this, I have a lot of stuff built into here already to set up the window. But I haven't made it visible because if you notice, remember what we did before, we set up a J-frame, we set up a layout, right? We set up a layout right for the J-frame, not even a, we didn't even set up a panel inside at all, right? We added a text field as an example. We did all this stuff, right? And here's our, we tried to add a action listener. This is the thing I was supposed to do last time because we just got to event listeners or event handlers, right? And then what I did was I set my window visible to true. If I don't set my window visible to true, will it come out? Let's see. I'm going to run it now. See what happens. Well, it just opened and closed, right? It says terminated. I opened it and it's gone. But if I do this, my window dot, can I do this? Dot visible. I can't do that. And the reason for that is because down here, when I made my window visible last time on my own, and I want to show you this stuff because we did it without the class, right? And later on, I told you we're going to make it with the class, set visible to true, right? Okay, let's try that now. So I'm going to make my window set visible to true, and now I'll run it, and let's see if it works now. There it is, right? So remember, I always need to set my visible to true in order for the window to open, or else I'll never see it. Now, even though this looks like a regular window with nothing in it, as an example, I still already, because I instantiated this stuff based on my new custom class, mywindow.java, it already has this set default close operation to exit on close. It already does that, so I can always close off my window. Okay, so I already did it. And all the stuff I'm going to do in my custom window is going to be right in here now, as opposed to in my program. I did it over here before, right? This way, I instantiate my window in this particular manner, right? And I define everything that's going to be added to the content pane, which is JPanel, right in here. Here's a funky thing you can do too, right? We did a custom window, and if I click on source and go back up to the top left here and go swing, right, JPanel, well, look what it does. It says, okay, I got my own custom JPanel now I can also do. And I can call this my content pane, like this. Let's just see this. And when I do that, it does the same thing. I can actually extend my content pane so it has other things that it can do. Right now, I don't need this right now, but I'm showing you can extend all of the basic components of Swing, so you can add additional functionality. For now, let's leave it as is. So we've done this piece, and now what I want to do is I want to progress from here into our doing some event handling, because I think that's the piece we have to get to, because we have to add some buttons so they do something. Okay, so again, remember that when we do GUIs, right, we create an event handler, right, and then we need to create something. Well, actually, there's an event listener. There's two things. There's the event itself. In Java, it's called the event, right? And in iOS, it's called an action, right? Something happens. We want to create an action listener, if you will, both in iOS, Swift, as well as here in Java, right? So again, there's two things we're going to try out. We're going to try and do things with JText fields and JPassword fields. There's two different kinds of things that we kind of showed an example of that. Here's some examples of the different fields. We've seen these before, right? Where here, as an example, I have a custom JFrame with the name of text field frame, and I've added a few constants, right? These are some constants with just the names text1, text field 1, text field 2, text field 3, and so on, and a password field, which kind of colors it a little differently. And in here, I'm going to send my this is my title bar for my JFrame. This one, they set the layout to flow layout, right? And we're going to talk about why flow layout as opposed to something else. And then here they added a bunch of text fields in this particular case, right? Which we kind of saw last time. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually add, instead of how we did it last time, all we have to do is this .add functionality, because once we do this our own custom field, we just have to use the add method to add it onto the JPanel. But we're going to not add it onto the frame. We're going to add it to the content pane. So we're going to say content pane.add, and then it's text field 1, text field 2, text field 3, and password, right? And if you notice, there's a bunch of these action listeners, if you will. Here's the action listeners, and they're all going to the same handler. It's called handler. They just called it handler, right? So we'll talk about that. And the handler, they've defined a new handler as a new object called text field handler. That's what it is. And if you notice, if I go to the next page, here's text field handler right here. Text field handler implements action listener. So it's it's using the action listener. What if I say implements? What is it now? We just covered this. Is it a subclass? Is it a superclass or what? It's an interface. So when I go into this thing, and we see this is why we're doing interfaces and stuff right now. If once you see the implements keyword, we implement this action listener interface. And look where this is where we have to put this @ override in. When we implement an interface, we must override its abstract classes, abstract methods. So the one abstract method that the action listener interface comes with is action performed, right? That's the one thing we have to do. So it says, well, okay, and we actually have an action event that we define, and here's the actual event is called event of type action event. Okay, and then of course we can say we can say event.getSource, the getSource method of the event object, to say which text field, as an example, did we click on, and depending on which text field we clicked on, then we'll do different things. So we create this new text field handler that handles all the events together. Okay. So let's do that together. Let's put this together so we understand how to do it. We're not going to create all of these ones, but this is using a shared event handler, if you will, as opposed to individual event handlers, right? And the password field, right, also uses this handler, depending on, we declare handler of this new type, where there's a custom type we're declaring right here, okay? So we're making a new class, and it's going to implement this class action listener. Let's try doing this automatically with Eclipse, because Eclipse is really good at doing this kind of stuff, right? So we're going to go here to our new class. This is the first thing we need before we even do anything else, right? So we're going to right-click, new, class, and normally the class defaults to Java Lang object. Well, we can change that. We can go to Browse, right, and we can start typing action, right? And if depending on what I want, is it an action event? Is that what I want to implement? Do you guys remember?
Yes.
Action listener, right? That's our. We can if we put this in as a class to override, we're creating a subclass. This isn't what we want. We want to put a new interface. So we go click Add Interface, and now we're going to search Action, and here's Action Listener. Well, look, it actually implements the interface for us. It's built in, right? We say, let's get the constructors from the superclass. We don't need that. But I do want to have, this is cool, Action Listener, press OK. I don't care about this, but I do care about this inherited abstract methods. I want to include that automatically. And I want to give it a name, right? Like this, we're going to call it text handler, right? Like we said before, with a capital T. But we're going to get Eclipse to write part of it for us to make it easy. And we're going to click Finish. Okay, take a look. Public class text handler, right? Implements action listener, automatically done for us. And look, here's our override. So we don't have to remember this crap. It's too much to remember. But we just need to know we need to implement a class of action listener, or interface of action listener. Okay, cool. So here's our action listener. We've got half the work done for us. And now let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation. Okay, cool. So we have this string, And if you notice, we use this string to format the text field, right, that we're going to get. So we're going to say, first we're going to test to say if event.getSource is equal to text field 1, text field 2, text field 3. Hey, this is bad, man. What's a better method to do this? It's only one thing we're testing. Event.getSource, event.getSource, event.getSource. What's a better decision structure? Switch. To me, switch is always a better thing when I have one that I'm looking at and I see if, else, if, else, if, else, if. It's way better to use a switch in this particular case. It's much clearer, and you know what? It takes up a lot less space. So that's the first thing I would do. Let's go back. Now, we don't have these text fields yet. So let's go back into my window, which is where we're going to add them in. And if you notice, here's our content pane, which we've already set up with border layout. We're going to see what the effect of border layout is in a second. And here's my, instead of set content pane to content pane, I'm going to go after this. Sorry. After this is where I'm going to set up my stuff, right? So this is inside my constructor, actually. Right, here's inside my constructor of the JFrame. I'm going to declare my text fields, right? And if you remember how we go back to this thing, let's skip back a page or so. I'm going to say my new text field, right? If you go at the top, if you notice, I have private final. Why would I make these constants? What would I care to make these constants? Should I make these constants instead of variables? Oh yeah, okay, but that's great. It won't change my text fields, but why final? What does final do? Final makes it a constant, yeah? What if we didn't do it constant? And the other thing is this. I need a couple of classes here I'm importing. I'm importing my AWT, right? My swing as well. And do I have all those things in here in my program? I think I already included swing, right? And I also have all these AWT color filter and the flow layout. I have that stuff already in here, so I don't have to kind of do it again, right? But do I have to do it in here? I got Java AWT. Do I have to also include all this other stuff when I declare my new class, like the AWT and the swing framework? Well, the answer is probably not, but let's do it anyway. So if I notice, if I skip down in here, if I open this up, these are all the things that are included. Swing JFrame, swing JPanel, swing border, empty border. All the stuff we need is included. Now, if I want to include the stuff for my text field, I need to use this swing.jtext field. Right? So I need to include that because it's not included right now. So I got to do it import javax.swing.j text field. Right? I need that. If I don't do that, I won't have access to doing a text field. I'll do the same thing with my password field, right? If I say password, right? So J password field, there it is. And it gives me the Java docs on the bottom, tells me all the stuff I need. So I'm press that. So these are the two things I need. Now I'm going to add them in. So now that I know I can do a J text field, in the top of my class, see here where I did my private JPanel, I'm going to do some private other things. If you notice, in our convention, if we wanted to change things to make it so that it's internal, how would I rename this thing? I got to use an underscore, right? So I'm going to right click just to keep consistent with what I just told you today. Right click, and I'm going to go drive you crazy with this stuff. I'm going to rename, and I'm going to rename my content pane with an underscore. Takes 2 seconds. Right? So now we know it's an internal field. It's not going to be available to us outside of our custom JFrame. And I'll do the same thing for my my text fields, because if you notice, if you go back to the PowerPoint, these are all private text fields anyway. So J text field, and one of them is called text field 1. We're only going to do 2 this time, right? Text field 1. And if it's private, we got to put an underscore in front of it. It's going to drive you crazy. And the second one is private J password field to 2, right? And password field. Let's rename that so it's correct. Yeah? So we got a couple of these things. We declare them up here just like we normally would. And now I can use them in here or inside a method. Okay? I like to declare my methods later because I like to kind of put them in here and then extract stuff. I think it's easier for me. Like for example, I could have extracted this content pane, right? Kind of, create content pane in a method, right? All this stuff is almost like initialization. I'm setting up my default closing operation. I'm setting my bounds. I'm setting up my content pane and all that kind of stuff. I want to create this into a method. So I'm going to right click and hold and kind of put all this into this method. I'm going to extract it by going into Refactor, and I'm going to make this a private method, right? So here's my extract method. I'm going to make it private, right? And I'm going to name it with an underscore, right? So it's going to start off like this. It's going to say initialize. Right, so it's going to initialize my window. It's not going to be available for outside. I'm going to click OK. Here's my initialize method, a private method with an underscore. So here's private methods, right? So I initialize my window. That's the first thing I do. And this makes sense now because I'm initializing. Okay, cool. Let me, yes?
Can you show it again?
Again? Sure. Just for you. So I kind of highlight everything first, right? I right click and I go to refactor, right? So I find refactor, here it is. And I go to extract method, right? And when I do that, I choose private, make sure it's private method. You can make it public as well. And I just put underscore for my method name and I just called it initialize. Oops, I'll be okay. And press OK. See? So now I encapsulate this nicely in here. What's wrong, Luis? Are you laughing at me again? What did I do wrong?
No, because you have Windows Builder installed. I was looking for it. I don't have it.
Where's my Windows Builder? What are you talking about? I don't understand.
There's some buttons that I don't have.
Wait, where? What? When? I mean, this button here?
Yes.
I don't have that button either.
Oh, poor guys. No, it's not. This is part of Eclipse, right? So Window Builder is what I have. I recommend you download it. It's a nice little quick and easy, dirty trick that you can use to create your stuff. But if you don't have it, don't worry about it. We can always do things manually. Huh? You got it? Oh, okay. Okay, so we have initialize, and now I want to create my stuff. I want to add my text fields, right? So I'm going to say, well, I define them up here, right? And now, if you remember what it looks like in the PowerPoint, now that I've defined them, I've got to declare them like this, right? Now, if you notice, this is a 10-column text field. This is my text field with a default text. We'll do this one. Enter text here. Enter your name, we'll say, right? So we'll say, again, this dot. See what I'm doing? Text field 1, and I'm going to fix this up, by the way. This dot text field 1 is equal to new J text field, right? If I can, it'll be okay. And enter your name would be the default, right? That's my text field as your default text field. There's a problem. I also want you to see in front of my method, I want you to do this in sort of my method call, because in front of methods and in front of internal thing, I also want you to use the keyword this, right? You don't have to, I'm asking you to. Use an explicit method call. You know it's an internal method, it's not something else. And we know this is a private internal method because it's the underscore, right? Okay, cool. We'll do the same thing. So after we've declared our text field, we don't have it until we add it. And we know that we have a content pane down here, right? Oh man, now I have an issue. I called that a content pane down here, but I want to make my content pane up here so I can use the bloody thing, right? So I'm going to take this content pane, this JPanel, right? I'm going to extract it or cut it out. I'm going to put it up here, right? Before my, well, actually, I have it here anyway, right? See? My content pane is this content pane, right? I'm going to undo that change. All I've done is declare it. One thing I do want to do here is use the this keyword. Sorry, I want to reformat it because what it does, Windows Builder doesn't do this for you, and it's not required. But I do it so that way you understand what I'm doing. Because, like I said, it can be quite confusing at times. Okay, so now that I've got my this content pane down here, I want to add this to my content pane. So I'm going to say this content pane. This one, right? Dot add, right? What am I going to add in? I'm going to add in my component, right? Which is my text field, right? So this underscore text field, which is right here. Now, again, I can do I need to put this in, or can I just do this? There is a constructor for that, right? So it's an overloaded constructor, so I can just put in what I'm adding into the text field. And if I run this thing the way it is, with nothing else, right? Yeah. Then I get this, enter your name. Whoa, why is it all the way down here? Right? And I can enter my name all I want, press enter, 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 enter. It doesn't do anything right now because I don't have anything set up. But that's the difference, that's the JPanel. That JPanel opened up and created a border so I can add stuff in there with my field, my text field. You can get as creative as you want here, right? Okay, so even though I use border layout, here's where I use border layout. It kind of put it in the middle. How do I control, like I said, where it goes? What kind of other layouts do we have? Again, I'm asking that question because if I change from border layout back to what we had before to flow layout, right? Here's my flow layout. And I go down here where I did border layout and I change this to flow layout, right? New flow layout. I can't do this anymore. I got to do this, right? And I press, if everything goes well, if I've done everything correctly, right? I'm still getting an error. Oh yeah. Just a syntax error. And I press go, right? And I do it now, it's up here, look. Right? And if you notice, I can kind of change this to whatever I want. I can't press enter, but at least everything's inside the layout. The other thing I want to do with my window is make it so that it's a size, like right now it says 100, 100, right? And then 450 by 300. I want to make it 320 by 480 because we're going to start programming on Android, so I want you to get used to this size. I'm going to save it and run it again so we see it the right size. Right? Makes sense? Look. This is where you're getting to. I'm using flow layout. It's ugly, but it works. Okay. I've added in my text field. I'm going to do the same thing for my password field. This to underscore password field, right, is equal to new J password field. If I go control, here it is. And my password field has a couple of options. If you notice, I can put in some hidden text, whatever the hidden text is. So this is my password, right? Password. Right? And of course, I want to add my password, so to the content pane. Right? All I'm doing is selecting and clicking. If I run it again, I get my password. Right? Here's my name, and here's my password. I don't have any labels, right? And if I want to add labels, I would add them on top of my text field, right? Like name, password, whatever. So I could add a label, right? Because right now I have a couple of things. I have a JPanel, JFrame, JText field, JPassword field. I could also add in a label, JLabel, right? And I can do the same thing up here. I can say, well, I want a couple of labels, right? So I want a private JLabel called text field 1 label, right? And I want a private JLabel called password field label. Right, so 2 labels, and I want to put them one on top of the other. So here's first on top, I'm going to say this dot underscore text field label, here it is, right, is equal to new JLabel, and I'm going to pass in some text to say things like name, right? Here's my name, and I want to say this dot content pane dot add, which is this dot underscore text field label. So I'm going to add that into the pane. Doesn't this seem familiar? Like we did the same thing with today, but with add child as opposed to add to the content pane. Same thing here. We want to add another text label here. So this dot underscore, password field label is equal to new JLabel, and we'll call this password, right? And again, we'll do this dot content pane, oops, right, dot add, and we'll add this dot underscore password field label. See how the underscores cut down all the choices too? Because there's only one underscore, it's us. Nothing to do with the other stuff. So there's lots of stuff that'll come up in code hinting. You put the underscore in, it's only our stuff. Only our private methods come up with the underscore first, right? So it shows up our stuff that we want to see. So it's a pain in the ass because the underscore is a little bit funky to get used to when you start typing, but afterwards it becomes easier. Okay, let's see what we got now. So name, enter your name and password. Here's our password, right? Hey, how come we don't have a space? How come it's like one next to the other? How come it's not down here? Well, because we haven't told it to be down there. It's our layout that we've chosen. Okay, cool. Let's add our text handler now. We need to add all this stuff in here. We waited because we need all that information before we go into our text field listeners. We have to add a text field handler of type new text field handler. We need to do that in our JFrame. And we need to do this password field and text field add action listener of the handler. So let's do that back over here. So, and by the way, we're going to extract some methods here too. So here we go. So we're going to say this dot text field, right? Dot add action. And we're going to put in there, we're going to call it handler for now, right? I don't know what's happening. I'm good. It's okay, it's recording. I don't know why it's doing that on that screen, but it's okay on this screen. Look, take a look. I didn't do anything, I swear. Let's put it back to laptop. Yeah, that screen just died, eh? Sorry. I don't know what happened. Sorry about that, Jonathan. You're the only one that's looking at it right now. All right, I don't have a handler yet, but let's just do this one, and this dot underscore password field dot add action listener, and we're going to put handler in there as well. We don't have a handler, but we've already declared a new one, which is our text handler. So text handler is equal to new text handler. We got to do that here because otherwise we don't know what it is. This thing here is pointing to our new file that we're creating right here. Make an action handler. Okay, here is where we're going to put our, oh, wait, one more thing. I don't know what happened. Here's one thing. Look, I got all this stuff in here this is into my constructor. right? I don't want all this in my constructor. I want to extract all this into its own thing. And this is I'm going to do the same thing I kind of did with us last time, which is I'm going to right click, I'm going to go refactor, and I'm going to extract method. Come on guys, this is easy now. It's going to be a private method. It's dead again. And it's going to be, I'm going to call it create UI, right? It's going to be a private method, and I'm going to press OK. So now here's my create UI method, where I do this, right? And my create UI method is all this stuff. Of course, I'm going to take my private method comment out, because this is just going to dump it somewhere when I refactor. Put it back up here. Yeah. Why? Because look, now my constructor, which is this right here, is very small. Right? Oh yeah, it's flashing now, buddy. It's flashing, that other one. Right? It's very, very small. Look, take a look. So I've got one constructor, but it calls these two methods. One that's initialized and the other one that's this create UI method when it does this. Okay, here's my text handler. Let's go back. And my text field handler is going to have, when I go in here, I need to do a couple things. I need to set up a switch that's going to look at this event and the get source. And depending on what it is, text field 1, text field 2, or password to password, whatever it's called, right? We can do something. Let's look at that. So go back. I create a switch. And if I press Control Enter now, it says, hey, do you want to use a switch? If I double click, it'll actually put my switch in for me like this, right? So I don't have to do it for me. And I can go E. Now instead of E, this is we'll make this event, because that's our default. And I'll go event dot, right? Get source is what I wanted to say, right? Here's my event dot get source. That's what I'm switching, right? And then here are the values that I have. Now the reason why this isn't working, if I look at what it says cannot switch on a value of type object. Right? This is a value of type object. This is what I wanted to do. Event.getSource. Right? What's our source? And this is why it looked like it was a good idea at the time, right? To do this. But we're trying to set in an object to a switch as opposed to a value. And that's why. So I said, remember, the proper thing to do is a switch, right? If we were doing this in JavaScript, this would be no issues. But because we're doing it here in Java, Java is stricter, and it goes, hey, wait a minute, you're trying to switch an object? Makes no sense, right? Well, what's the object we're returning? We're returning an object type, right? Which is going to be, if you go back to the PowerPoint, it's going to be this, of text field. We're checking the source to see if it's a text field, right? So let's do it the other way, because obviously this doesn't work. Instead of a switch, we'll do an if, and I press Control Space, and if you notice, I can do an if else, right? Take a look at my code hinting. If I double click, it sets up my if-else conditional statements, right? And now I can do the same thing, say event.getSource, right? Well, I'm still getting the error, right? I'm trying to switch on event like this, but I'm not doing that. I have to say is equal to something, right? I can't just do that. I said is equal to what? Is equal to my text field label 1. Text field 1 label, this one. Now, if you notice how it's mentioned back here, right, it says I'm actually able to access text field here, right? See how it's text field here? But for us, can we access text field over here? Huh? But so is theirs. Wait a minute, what's going on? How come they can access this private text? Oh. Final is like static, right? You can use two things, static or constant in different languages. They're the same, right? Static is almost creates a container object, but so does final or const. It's the same thing. So when I use final, even though it's not instantiated, I can still use the object. It doesn't have to be private, but I can still have access to it. So if I do that now, but if I try and access it here in my text handler, right? And if I say something like underscore, if I start trying to underscore text field text field 1, right? It won't find it, right? It doesn't says, well, I don't know what it is, right? What's text field 1, right? But look what it says. If I say text field 1 is a constant, somehow we're able, or we can figure that out. So if I go back to my window and go back up here to where I've created my all my objects, so private for my text field itself, final, right, text field 1, and for the password only, right, because I don't need the labels to be like that. I'm not going to access the labels. And if I go back down here now, well, let's see if there's an issue. Hold on. Oh, public, my window. What does it give me an issue now? The blank final field, text field 1, may not have been initialized, right? And if you go back to on this thing here, right? It allowed us to do it here, right? Right? Text field 1, I initialized it here, but here it doesn't know, right? It doesn't know that I've initialized my password label. Look, if I hover over it, it says remove final modifier of text field 1. Why? Why is it giving me that problem? It worked on the PowerPoints. It says like I should be able to do that, right? Here it is right here. Private final text field 1. I'm doing the exact same thing, except I'm just coding it a little differently. It should work. I didn't do anything different than here or than here, right? But somehow it's not working. Oh, this is the wrong one. Haha. This is wrong. This doesn't matter, right? Here's password and here's text field. I'm initializing it right here. I'm adding it. All right, you're not getting it? Okay, let's run it and see what happens. Proceed anyway. Launch. Cool, cool. Okay, well, I'm getting it. Are you getting the error too? Yeah.
I'm getting an error with my window.
Well, the reason why we're getting that error is because even though we put it here, we put it inside a method, we don't know, Java doesn't know if we've initialized it. So what's the thing to do? You could initialize it here, up here. You could say something like this. I could initialize my label up here. This is the quick fix. So new J text fields, right? Just like we did down here. Instead of doing this here, we can do that up there, but we add it in later. So if we do that, so let's try that and see if that fixes us. Right, so I'm going to do, look, it actually did fix me, right? Sorry, let me just go back there again, see? Yeah, this piece. So from the new piece equals new, and I go up here to this, right? And if I go down here to my password, now I'm just saying, this is, you could do it this way, but I want you to tell me, from your opinion, is this the right thing to do? Remember we talked about you could do it, but the answer is, should you do it? Well, why not? Let me just get rid of this stuff. We've already done it. We don't have to redo it. So I'll just comment this out, your name and my password, right? Because I'm just going to add them in afterwards. I'm going to save everything, and then I get an issue where it says, oh yeah, we forgot the equal sign there. Okay, hold on. Does this correct my problems? Okay, it's cool, but can I still access it over here? Right? Equals to underscore text field 1. How come? Right? It worked. In the PowerPoint, it said that we should be able to access text field 1. Right? Here's the PowerPoint. Here's my text field 1, right? I'm getting it into the, well, no, but it was private in my thing first. Well, because, see, text field 1, see this event source, event.get source? and see how it's text field 1 is listed like this? Is this really how it should be? Or should it be with quotations? That's the question for you, right? Try it that way. So if I say is equal to text field 1, will I get an error? And is this correct? That's the other question. Is this going to be the correct thing to do? If text field 1, else if, right? Get source, event.get source. Let's put that in for now. We'll figure out the problem. Is underscored password field, right? And if it's text field 1, we'll do a system.out.println. We're running out of time, guys. We'll say text field clicked or entered. And we'll do this one over here, system.out.println. We'll say password. Or entered. I think it's an enter. But anyways, let's leave it the way it is. And we'll say else. Final else. Like anything else that happens, something else happened. We're doing an event handler, right? Okay, cool. If you go back to the PowerPoint again, right? We've done this stuff. We've done our if, else, if. And then it says as an example, our J option pane, we're just showing up an, something in the option pane that pops up that gives us our string, right? Kind of shows us what we did when we press enter. We're not going to do that. We're just going to output to the console. All right, so we click in there, and I say, you know, I kind of put in enter. Something else happened. So it did detect something, right? Enter. Something else happened. So it wasn't one of those two things. It wasn't text field 1 or password field. It didn't detect those two things. And if I do one thing like this, it errors out because it doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about, right? I'll show you again. Look. It doesn't get what this is because my get source doesn't work this way. If I save and run, it's going to say, hey, proceed anyway. And then somehow, when it runs anyway, take a look. If I go Tom, it gives me my error. So text field 1 is what I'm looking for. I'm going to try and detect, I'm using event.getSource to detect what it is, right? Now it says create a local variable text field 1. Well, sure, we can do that. And I can pass in into my constructor for my action performed, or into my constructor for my my text handler, right? Which I haven't created, by the way. Let's go back to that. Oops, my PowerPoint. Do I have a constructor for my text field handler? I don't.
You have the string.
Well, I have an add override. I have a string. This is a holder for what it's going to turn into, but I can't even switch it. Here's my switch right here, right? Text field 1 doesn't seem to be even something we can see, right? And if you notice why, is because this, line 48, and this, line 47, is all in the same file. Look. See? It's all part of text field frame. So what we're actually creating, and this is the trick, guys, what we're actually creating is an inner class. So this is the first time you've seen an inner class, right? It's not an anonymous inner class, it's an inner class. So instead of creating a text field handler that's separate, we've got an inner class that we access here. However, we don't have to do that. We know we want to switch out our different objects, right? We want to reference to these objects, and we can do that by passing it into a local variable, right? So example would be if we went into our text handler, and we created a constructor for it, like text handler. So public text handler. You can do it this way too. And inside there, we're going to get text field 1. just text field and password field, let's say. Okay, and we're going to switch for these things. So text field and password field. This dot, we don't have it yet. Text field and this dot password field. And this is what we're passing into our constructor. And inside our constructor, we're going to say this dot underscore text field is equal to text field. Bear with me. And this dot underscore password field. We haven't described these yet. Password field is equal to password field. Right? I've got those things. And up here, I'm going to declare a couple of private variables. Private this, underscore text field, and private underscore password field. Right? That I'm holding stuff inside. Right? And now let's take a look at what the issue is. Delete these tokens. I've tried to do this too fast. Oh yeah, text field. What type of text field and password? What are these things? They're J text field, and this is a J password field, right? That's what I'm passing in. J password field. Yeah. And of course, if I do that, then I've got to also import that the java.swing dot javax.swing dot j password field and import javax.swing dot j text field. Whew. And even with that, I still have to declare these as, private J text field. I'll be okay. And J password field. And I gotta fix this one here because it's wrong. And now, whew, we got it done. And I know I did it quick, but the reason why is because when I run it now, there's still an error. Where's my error? Oh. My window.java file. Oh. I need to send in my text field, this dot text field, and this dot password field. So if I don't do that, then this isn't receiving it properly and it won't work. And now I can run it, and if I type in my name and enter, text field clicked, and my password and enter, password field clicked, and I get my stuff. Yeah? So again, inner classes, we can do that. You're going to see a lot of things in Android where you see anonymous inner classes, right? Right now we've done two separate classes, right? But again, the example in the book, sometimes they go nuts, these guys from Deedle, and they have anonymous inner classes, or inner classes, and they're good, they're fine, they work, but should you do it that way just because you can? Okay, I'm going to send this version, this lesson 4, for you guys to see this. COMP1011, lesson 4 master. I'm going to kind of create a new commit for this one as well. So I'm going to go to, and we can leave. Commit, created custom JFrame and related handler. And that would be on the lesson 4, COMP1011 lesson 4 update that you're going to see on GitHub. Okay? So a little bit of programming today. I wanted to do this piece, and I know we ran a little bit over, but the reason why I wanted to do this with you is so that way you see how we use and how we inherit classes that actually exist out there, for the first time. Okay? And that's it for me for this week. Remember, next week, exam time. And of course, your new assignment 3 is due.
Going to test us.